Hey, ninth grade. All right, so today I've got a little quiz for you at the end of the lesson. We're going to be talking today about the revival of trade and the growth in towns and cities, starting chapter 10 in the Middle Ages. So first we had the fall of Rome in 476. And when Rome fell, everything really shrunk back. Education went by the wayside, trade and travel went by the wayside, and people were living on the manor. The feudalism took over and was the the dominant economic policy of the day. And so we went backwards for a couple hundred years. But then the Crusades opened up the world again, seeing commodities that were available in the Middle East and in the Holy Land, opened up ideas for people. Trade began to prosper, trade routes were opened up. And so we see a lot of changes as we come out of the Crusades and into the late Middle Ages. So your book talks about several topics. It goes through different trade routes. There was an overland route, a combination route between land and water, and then a predominantly water route. You can look at those on page 227. And then it goes into talking about markets and fairs. And so some of you have been to the farmer's market on a Saturday. So when you think markets, you want to think small and local. And then a fair, we also have fairs nowadays, every October usually, over at the fairgrounds. So markets would be a small weekly event in a town or a village or a city. And then a fair would be something that would happen for a couple of weeks during the year. And some people would travel from location to location to be a part of these fairs. And you might find more exotic things to buy at the fairs as opposed to the markets. The markets would be what you need for your daily lives: eggs, milk, chickens, a new strap for your horse, those types of things. Where fairs, you might get some new material, you might get some new spices, and some things that you didn't have access to all the time. Well, all this growth in trade is going to lead to the development of money and banking. And so we've been bartering for several hundred years, but now coins are going to come back and money is going to come back. And so people who can judge the quality of the coin and the amount of the coin, and they can compare my French coin to your Italian coin and decide how much they're worth, that will all be very necessary and very important. And so that will be the beginning of banking. And so one example your book gives is the florin, which is a gold coin that was minted by the city of Florence. And so that's where it gets its name. So money changers become very important because they can judge the quality of the money. They can judge whether or not money is counterfeit, and they can help you sort through those things. Then when you travel, you could also get a piece of paper like a modern day check, and you could get a certificate and take that certificate to the next location and get money for it. And that way you're not traveling with money and at the risk of being robbed. Two things your book points out: just price. This is the idea that the amount of material, the amount of labor, the quality of your work, you should make a little bit of a profit. We're not price gouging, but kind of a fair return for your effort and your materials and those types of things. And then usury is the practice of charging interest. And the Roman Catholic Church will support the idea of a just price, but they will not support the idea of usury. They think it is a sin to charge interest, and they believe that you should give out of the goodness of your heart. Unfortunately, if you're into banking, then you need to pay for your family's food on the table too, and the way you do that is by charging a little bit of interest. So That's an issue there. Then growth of towns, starting on page 231. Different towns will have charters, and depending on the charters and the freedoms, different people would be pulled in different directions towards different towns based on those freedoms or advantages or things like that. It talks about citizenry and free status, and I'm going to let you read about that on page 232. And then it talks about guilds. Guilds are important because they're going to control the quality and the standard for things. And so if we have a craft guild and say I'm in the business of making aprons, that I'm making a quality apron that's not going to just tear apart, or the seaming is not going to fall apart after you wash it one time. And so guilds would be a kind of a society or something that you would hold membership in that would guarantee the quality of your work. And so they're going to actually require you to have an apprenticeship under a master sewer and learn the skill. And your book talks about being an apprentice and then a journeyman and eventually creating a masterpiece. And so the function was to regulate business activity, to also provide quality control, to help with wages and keep those at a good price, and a level playing field across the board was very important as well. So we see this new middle class emerge. Formerly we had lords and we had peasants and we had knights, but now we've got merchants, people who can make money on their own. They can prosper and become quite wealthy. And so this new middle class that can exist outside of the feudal system in cities and towns develops, and it gives a lot of people who've earned their freedom or run away from the manor or maybe went and fought in a crusade and earned their freedom. It gives them lots of options when they come back to town. Your book has a little segment on the Black Death. I'll have you read that on page 234, talking about the way that it was spread. 1/4 of the population, they believe, was wiped out due to the Black Plague. So much more serious than what we're dealing with today, even though we're taking drastic measures to try and not spread the coronavirus. I think the Black Death probably was more lethal in its day. So I will have some reading pages posted on the assignment. It'll be a little quiz. And it's the first 2 sections of chapter 10 that we're looking at. I hope you're doing well. I miss you guys. And this is it for today. Bye-bye.